So I'm gonna do a little bit of a walkthrough. I used one of the GTO wizard drills today, um, which I believe was supposed to be single raise pot in position at various SPR. For whatever reason, it's playing me both in and out of position, and then I changed the SPR to, or not the stacks to 75 big blinds all the way up to 200. It was doing like 20 big blind stacks, and it was just I don't notice that tiny little line right there, so. Yeah, I just want to walk through my process, see how I do. We see that flop here, we're button versus big blind, 100 big, super standard. On this turn, I have been using, so I try to look at strategy. So you can look at the ranges. I like looking at the equity graph a little bit. I never really use this when I do drills, but I think I want to start for a little bit. But we're at the bottom of range here, and we realized pretty well we're at an equity disadvantage, so we probably want to be pretty aggressive. Is this a good combo that we don't really have any equity when called? We're kind of drawing dead. So this is probably a fine check here. I see that we're lagging quite a bit. So typically when you see that we have an equity disadvantage, really high equity realization, and we're at the stone cold bottom of our range we want to bet. The reason I didn't was because we brought in the flush draw into the 1/3 pot. We're going to see a lot of floats, just like Jack 10 suited, stuff like that. Um, so we're going to get called by, random flush draws that are over 7 high, basically. And we're not going to have equity when called. But I think that we value the fold equity more than we worry about the niche things like that now that I see that we're only checking 15% of the time there. And here we've got a pretty solid bet. Oh, there's a cat in our yard. Hold on. So here I'm guessing 126 is going to go pretty well. They're not going to have as many trips. They will have quads, but we will also have quads. We'll have top boat. They're going to have to fold a lot here. So even though they have equity, yeah, that's actually pretty close. So we're going to see, but that probably pushed us to a bigger size. Yeah, when you see EQR that big, is we're going to have to polarize even more. Versus if it was like 102 to like 60, we get away with going smaller because they're just going to be overfolding so much. So we look at the turn here. Yeah, so it didn't even really need a big size. It just wanted to do something. And the turn was more dramatic as we see, so that kind of fits the concepts that we're working with here. Um, we're out of position here, 100 big blinds. I assume that they just range bet. Does it show me that? No. Still no need to bet really. When I do the drills myself, I don't have it show me any of this until the end of the hand. With that overbet and a dry turn, they're probably gonna have at least a pair a lot. Yeah. Super laggy stuff. Let's see if I can close out some tabs and help. Yeah, we're just gonna want to 1/3 range it a lot. We can mix checking and probably a little bit of both sizes. Um, so we're a little bit deeper here. I think we could probably use okay, so it's only giving us one size. I'm gonna overbet here. I think that's gonna be like 40. Yeah, that's gonna be pretty drastic. I'm used to seeing like a 125 and 175, and I think we'd probably utilize both if you gave it to them. Um, I mean, we can repeat to see rivers. Rivers are the hardest part about playing these. Let me check that email real quick. So, same thing. They don't always call, but usually if you replay it, it'll change up the action. Now, this is pretty bad. So typically when you block, some of the draws, like this is a good card and a bad card to have, I guess. So I'm gonna say 101, but the EQR is so different, but the equity is so different. It's pretty tough to say. The queen is not a great card to have. I think this is going to be tough to find the right size in. So it just gives up. So it really doesn't like having that 10, I guess, if we look at the strategy. So it actually claims that we do have some showdown, not very much. So we block a lot of the folds in the trash and we don't block that great of value. So yeah, it really just does not like having the 10 of diamonds there from what it seems. Without a backdoor flush draw, we fold. With it, we call. No? See, this is why the 1/3 range bets on so many different boards, like dry boards and position, can be so powerful, because finding the right folds can actually be pretty tough. Now here we can mix an overbet, but we're mostly just going to want to be checking. I think we could probably go small a little bit too, but it's probably going to be like 5-10% overbet here. He's still going to check a lot of. I don't mind checking here. I think it's that or 60, and then we can call his overbet. Yeah, we just call this. I think it's too thin to raise. So it's checker 60 if I'm guessing, yeah. So it's pretty close. I would have gone 55. Sometimes it doesn't have the size that I want, so I kind of panic. And yeah, it's really close to raising. That's just so thin in my opinion. Because I know that they're going to check. But they are going to overbet a lot of their better aces and their two pairs, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure that's something that I'm fairly used to seeing. Now this is just a little too disconnected. Otherwise, you could kind of turn it into a check raise, but there's not really. I mean, you're going to turn something a lot, but it's just a little bit too in between. So I'd rather just fold. I think we're just going to go 1/3 here quite often. No need to get fancy. We can just check it back. Actually, with the heart and blocking stuff like 4-5, I do think there's going to be some aggressive betting there. Now the heart is a really bad card to have. So what are we overbetting here? Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm assuming that if we did that, we would just give up. I don't want to play it again. We're going to be calling a lot here. They shouldn't have. Well, on the button, they probably do have overbets, but on textures like this, early position doesn't really have many of those. I believe we can donk here, but I don't know if our hand functions very well like that. And because it's the button, it's not going to function as well. So we're one of these earlier positions that don't have as much range interaction with the lower turns. Now we can polarize here. I believe our range does polarize. I'm just going to check, but I'm guessing that there is some 75 to like 125 here. I guess, yeah, so they don't have 75. That's what I'm saying. The sizes aren't always equivalent to the ones that I would use in these spots. But yeah, so we're right on track, but we're checking. So we got that down. Just because they're gonna have so many they're gonna have like king highs and ace highs that we beat, and they're gonna have turned and rivered showdown often enough that they're gonna have plenty of candidates to bluff catch. So this isn't really one of the hands that we want to try to get tricky with. I don't hate checking here, but it probably wants me to bet. But I kind of like checking because they just get to check raise us a lot, but I know the solver is going to want to bet. when I'm playing this, I just tend to check more. I don't like playing against check raise because I don't think they're finding enough check raises, but I know that I'm supposed to call a check raise. We're probably not even in range anymore after that mess up, so yep. I'm guessing it checks or goes small or over. I guess it goes, I bet it does everything but what it did. No, it just checks. But it doesn't hate the overbetting as much. That makes sense. I mean, it folds out a lot of pairs, gets called by worse ace highs, block one of the outs. So it's going to get called by. What's interesting about this is it's going to get called by ace X of spades because the big blind's not going to three bet a ton of suited aces. They're three betting a ton of offsuit hands in this formation, especially at 100 big blinds. Because they want to dominate the button's flushes when they make flushes, so they utilize fold equity by just taking random high cards like king 10, king 9, ace 5, etc. offsuit, and they three bet those. And so if we both have ace high, we have the best ace high always, right? And they're going to have, nut flush draws, and we're going to be blocking their nut flush. We're also going to have a good card to, bluff with on certain rivers. So we're going to have a lot of options with this sort of hand because we do get to merge pretty well. We polarize and we reduce, the one pair holdings. We're going to fold out like sevens through nines and various 10x and maybe even probably mixing some jack x, right? And we're going to their range is going to respond in a tight manner, meaning that they're going to have a lot of draws. They're going to have a lot of multi draws, straight draws, flush draws, etc. And we beat all those hands. So that's a way that we can kind of maximize our equity when called by utilizing this size. Although I think we just realize better simply by checking. No backdoor flush draw. I fold with backdoor flush draw. I continue. We can check here. We can go small. We can kind of do whatever. We don't really want to overbet our kickers too bad. King queen is kind of where it gets worthwhile. Um, I don't hate checking. I'd probably check here in game. I'm not surprised to see that it probably goes 1/3. And then we call. See, that's what I'm saying is when you have wide ranges. So a lot of times on button versus big blind or field versus big blind, you have kind of a dry texture, and you have like a 1/3 c bet call, and then you have a super dry run out that's you know non-board changing. So the high card doesn't change, the flush doesn't get in, straights don't get in, etc. So what you're going to see a lot in that formation is you're going to see massive overbetting from the big blind. Like you might even see as much as 60% of range in some spots overbetting from the big blind. And pretty much all of their top pair, even if it has like no kicker, just kind of goes crazy. So that's kind of what I think about. I always think about how much top pair, the solver's going to have here. And I was wrong. I said, it would choose between checking and 66% a lot, but it actually prefers overbetting, which is kind of surprising for me. That means I don't have as good solid of an understanding as what sort of hands that are being called with. So I kind of want to look at that. Because a lot of times when we overbet these top pairs and we have favorable rivers, even with favorable rivers, we pretty much just check back. And so I wish I could see, I don't really want to get that into it, but it won't show me. Oh well. I was a little curious. Yeah, so the king 3 calls the overbet. So I didn't think they would call that wide. But on rainbow, I think the key thing to note there is on rainbow boards, they have to call it pairs, right? So you just kind of get to abuse them in position on dry runouts. Like you're going to overbet, low card or brick turns regardless, whether it's a flush draw turn that brings in a bunch of straight draws or whether it's just like a total brick turn that doesn't really dramatically change the board texture at all. But the difference is the tight, quote unquote, tight range that continues versus your overbets on a rainbow turn, on a rainbow flop, is that they can only really call it pairs. And so your threshold for overbetting pairs can change because on a rainbow or on a flush draw turn, you're pretty much only going to use top pair, top kicker, maybe a little bit mixed with like the best top pair the out of position range is going to have. So if it's queen high board, you'd have ace queen overbetting and maybe some king queen and maybe a smidgen of king jack or a queen jack or something. But it's pretty much going to be ace queen plus. But on a rainbow board, you can kind of get all the way down to queen 10, maybe even a mixture of queen 9, stuff like that. I mean, that's not a set in stone rule, but it's a trend that you're going to notice. This is probably a good check raise because our pair isn't good, but we have an over and we do have a little bit of blockers here, so I would raise 50%. It's going to be mixed, I'm guessing, mostly folding, but we might have a little bit of indifference there. I don't even know anymore. I guess it checks. And I give up. So we botched this one. We're 75 big blinds. So what are we doing wrong here? We're supposed to fold, I'm presuming. Yeah, so it does hate the raise, but it's like, it sees where I'm coming from. And there's like not even in range enough. Kind of like a hand that we saw earlier, I kind of presumed that it was just trying to get a little bit of fold equity going on. But yeah, we were just mistaken. Just kind of because we were bottom of range with the 5-4 hand when we, on like the ace-6 board or whatever, we saw that on the turn we were supposed to go 33% anyway, even though we didn't really fold much out. But the EQR and equities were quite different. So I do believe we'll be mixed here. We can check here, but I kind of like overbetting more. We can kind of do whatever there. With the king highs, I kind of tend to check more, but you can overbet this again. I'm pretty sure. I think it's just going to lean more towards check. I think it's going to want either a rainbow turn or a backdoor flush draw. Doesn't like 2/3. Well, I think it's just because it's not in the range. It's pretty close to same EV. Yeah, it doesn't like these sizes. I've seen spots where like king queen raises on textures like this. I don't think this formation, but it kind of weirds me out. I don't really understand it that much. I think it's maybe it folds out some aces and gets called by worse queen. I don't really know. But like I said, I don't think this is the spot. But I've seen some weird like second pair mergey hands before. Any additional bet, I'm pretty sure we just kind of bail. He's gonna have a lot of ace X here. Yeah, it plays super cautiously. These hands are going to want to check more often, but I still think we're like betting quite a bit. Like the hands in between fours through queens versus like pocket fives, for whatever reason, seems to want to bet higher frequency, and then pocket jacks wants to check the most. And then we fold. I think it's crazy to bet here if it does that. Sometimes it gets super, super, super thin. Do about 10 more minutes of this. This could be a good check raise candidate. It's pretty thin. You'd want something a little bit more attached, but I'll just try it for shits. I think they're all. I really don't know. This is pretty marginal. I think I get a little bit too fancy with these, but I think it's probably it's close. Like Jack nine suited, you definitely just raise, but you're gonna have too many of those combos where it's gonna be really easy to overdo it. Yeah, so I wasn't wrong. I don't actually. I just want the. It's not what I want. I was looking at the wrong things. Yeah, so the EV, as we saw, isn't terrible. It's like minus 0.04. I mean, it's losing, but it's not, crazy, especially if they're overfolding, which you realize when you look at this, they actually have to call a ton of hands that are super uncomfortable and difficult to find. Like their queen jack is probably calling, but we're gonna have a lot of hands that have three to a straight and three to a flush, and those are gonna be great raising candidates. And these boards, because they don't interact with the bluffs, so their bluffs are going to be a lot of queen highs and jack highs on these boards, in position rather. And so we actually don't want to raise with those hands. We just kind of want to flat with them. So then if they make top two pair, if they make top and bottom pair, we not only dominate them, but we also keep their bluffs in at the same time. So their bluffs are going to be jack highs and queen highs, and honestly, maybe even a little bit of king highs, which is why you don't see as much raising with these sorts of hands. So you have a 10 high board, and you see all of the lower ones raising. And the reason for that is they have to call a lot. If you raise 50% with 10-5, they have to call a lot of hands, and it's very unfortunate and uncomfortable. But you're not really worried about being dominated as much because they don't have, like the hijack doesn't have a lot of 5x. They have king 5x and ace 5 suited, and that's it. They don't have queen 5. They don't have any of these hands. And so that's why you're not that worried about jacks 10 them having 10-8 or something and you have 10-7. I mean, yeah, sometimes they're going to have ace 10 and you're going to be dominated raising these hands, but it's much more to get money in with top pair for protection and for value than it is with these hands where, yes, you have a slightly better kicker, but you still don't beat that many of their kickers anyways, and now you're negatively relating to the bluff part of their range with your value. So you take away their bluffs and you narrow the threshold of your value. So I hope that makes sense, but that's pretty common in these, field versus big blind spots and paired boards especially. But so you're gonna have, like as I said, you're gonna have a ton of three to a flush and three to a straight combos here. So it's really, really, really easy to overdo it. Look, we're already raising 23, 24, 25% almost. 22, 23, yeah, so 24% we're raising. That's a lot. And if we're just getting over the top with, Jack 9 offsuit, Jack 8 suited, Queen 9 suited, King Jack suited, we're overdoing it, and so we want to be a little bit selective here. Kind of how the same reason I was talking about with the 7-5 suited hand, where it's like, yeah, we definitely hit. Technically, we do hit the variables that we're wanting, which is three to a straight, three to a flush, fold out better, etc. But I'm gonna look at that. But range betting here, pretty whatever. These are kind of interesting to play because on maybe not an ace 10, but on maybe ace king or queen jack or whatever, on a lot of boards, they're gonna get a little wild on the turns, trying to utilize their fold equity. So I don't know if this is a great bluffing candidate. It's actually, I'm not very good at the check lines because they're gonna have so many flush draws. It's gonna be hard for us to get them out of it. But we do have a gut shot. We are like bottom of range. Our EQR is pretty big, but our equity is also ahead. So we could probably just go something in the middle here instead of going super polar. But I don't really know, to be honest. And we're probably going to want to bet again, but we're pretty behind. They're going to realize pretty well. Hmm. Yeah, rivers are hard. Yeah, I don't like these. I kind of want something in between, which is kind of what happened on turn as well. It's something I talk about a lot where it's like, it just kind of wants to push the little fold equity it has, even when it doesn't generate a ton of folds. So it's really hard for me to choose sizes in those contexts. We're going to be calling a ton here. Easy fold. I'm enjoying this. I might do a few more minutes of this. Mm. Once we get higher, it gets a little bit different, but we can kind of just be safe and always go 1/3 on these paired boards. You do need to be very careful with blindly betting on paired boards against big blind because they're going to have so much more trips than you pretty much always. And I've done node locking on this before where you can really, in the big blind, you can check range tons and tons and tons of boards with absolutely like your entire range you can check raise, where you can check raise only air and just simply call all of your good hands. And you're going to overperform against a lot of players. So this is another one. We do have options here. I was just trying to figure out how to best go about it. So it seems like a hefty jam, but they should have like good hands here. They probably have sets. They probably don't have deuces. So I think they're kind of capped at like ace 10 and ace king and stuff. So I don't think they have a ton that they can call us with. So I think 127 is just the move. even though our hand wants to go all in. I just feel like we're so, actually, no, we're not. I keep thinking I'm in position here. So I actually got to study this one. So we do utilize every size. Oh, 3, 4. We have 3, 4. I didn't even think about that. So sets, two pairs. So isn't that strange? Like, do you have like 9, 7, or 9? Like, that's so weird. So you just take 9, 7, you go all in. So 7, presumably doesn't interact much with their range. They got King 7 and A7 and sit. So when we jam, hmm, see, they don't even have Ace 10 in range. They barely have aces. They just call with Ace 9, which we block. They have to find King 10 and Queen 10, which I think they're not doing. I don't think they call Ace Deuce. They call nines, which isn't possible. So they don't call anything. So to be honest, if they're folding, a good exploit here could just be jamming any. If they likely have a lot of ace X in their range, jamming any weak 10x or 9x could be the move because they're not going to call these and you block these. So yeah, I guess you could just realize really, really well there that could be an exploit. But kind of like my reasoning here. They don't call with anything. I know they don't have to call often when you're 6x pot jamming, but they don't call with anything. No one's calling with this. So they don't really jam against you. They don't have tens or anything. And they call a lot. Yeah, this one's hard to, it's just hard to get sizing right. It's close, but I think I'm supposed to call here. Now he's gonna have a lot of bluffs when we but he's also gonna have some small bets as well. Now, what are we trying to fold out here? We're not really trying to fold out an ace, I don't think. But I think we're trying to fold out like pocket fives, pocket sevens, stuff like that. I would rather go like 80% pot here, 70% pot. I don't really like these two sizes, but we don't block a ton of junk. Yeah, I wonder what the EV difference is. See, I still like going a little bit bigger, but I guess it knows the thresholds perfectly, and I don't. Oh, I thought I paused. I guess I didn't. This is really tough. It's really, really close. Oh, it's under the gun though. I need to pay attention to these. Under the gun, they're just too strong, so we fold. But in like the cutoff, I think we probably slightly call. But now we're in like a unpleasant spot. And if they bet again, it just sucks for us because we kind of have to defend. Yeah, see, it really wants to defend. But we are indifferent even here, so it's definitely more plus EV. So that makes sense. It really sucks how much you have to call down there though, because they have so much trip aces. But I guess one thing you can think about is that they're probably genuinely just taking showdown with some of them, which is a weird thing to think about, which means that they're slightly oversaturated with bluffs than what intuition would say. Here I like checking a lot, but they're probably going to want to bet. They always bet these paired boards. So we're going to bet too. It probably bets again sometimes, but no, not here. Figured really like the heart. We're checking again, no issue with that. They're going to call with worst ace highs. We don't really fold anything out. Our hand just plays itself. We can raise here, but I don't really like it. That's like one of their polar sizes too. They don't really overbet on the flop. I wonder if we donk ever. I don't think we do because it still hits them too well. We technically do sometimes. Okay. I don't like donking here. I'd probably go smaller in real life. I'd probably go 30, 40%. I believe we do actually overbet here. Like on this texture, I don't know about this hand. We have like no pairs, so we probably don't really have to. But I'm gonna do it anyways because it's fun. um, we block ace queen. We block ace jack. We block their best pairs that aren't aces or kings. We have this. So a lot of times it's gonna want to check, but I'm gonna just be aggressive here. Um, I give up. Check is probably the most common. Yeah. We pretty much always fold, even like four big blinds here. Um, we can kind of do whatever here. It probably prefers a small bet. I like checking, but um, we can probably get away with the raise, but I don't really want to. Yeah, it wants to raise. It's so thin. It's so thin. But I guess yeah, when we bet one third on the flop and we have dry runouts, it really likes going super thin with raising top pair. It goes so thin, and that's just something I'm not used to. I just check this. We'll value. Okay, we were gonna value bet a brick river anyway. If he bets, we'll raise. We get to be pretty aggressive here. I guess it goes smaller to induce raises too. It's the same shit. I don't think it matters what size you go there. This is a very good check raise for us if he does not polarize. Um, I kind of like a jam, but mm, I just don't think we. That's what confuses me. I don't think we have that much showdown. I want to play this hand again. Like I really like our blocker stuff here, but if he bets, I think we could just get to go crazy here. I mean, he does have. I don't think he play. I think we just get to abuse the line with this combo. I could be wrong. It's fancy play, but yeah, it's saying I punted. We fold out like bottom set and shit, don't we? We just fold pure call. That's where we are in the range. I guess it's kind of a unique looking graph. I just assume I'm gonna make this the last hand. I'm gonna go through the last one, and then I'm gonna call it. Although I could do this all day. Got work to do though. So we're deep. I think we can go 130 here too, but I'd rather check. That's super ambitious. All right, last one, and then we'll go back. This is like a pretty good raise candidate. It's easy to overdo the raises. So we're at 75. So I would opt to do a smaller raise, but we can fold out like 10 high. Yeah, I think the SPR changes it a little bit. So yeah, easy to overdo. SPR is unfavorable. Super tight formation that has like ace three suited plus. Just done with the hand. I'm gonna review the one hand and call it. So how bad is the EV here? It's pretty bad. So don't get too fancy, I guess, is the play. It's more fun to be fancy. That's why it's fun to do these on the drills. Get it out of your system a little bit, see what's up. It's obviously, you can fold and it's gonna be right. Like it's not like 9-6 is an obvious, 100% pure check raise pot here, but it's fun to play around with it. Okay, let's look at, what was it, this solution? And we'll call it a day. So I'm guessing it's just not in range here because we're at such an equity disadvantage. But let's say we did, right? I mean, they're supposed to call ace four, ace five, 10-4, 10-4. That actually makes a lot of sense. Ace eight, ace 10, aces. So they're calling sets. They do have a little bit of nuts. They're calling sets and top pair and second pair with blockers. Yeah, I can get behind that. That checks out. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed. That's all I got today. Thank you.